So definitions, section two, and I think today we're going to start with something that's very topical: chatbots versus computer use. Right now, Claude is the only model that has a computer use function, and it's a beta function. But do you want to explain either what we mean by chatbots or both, Jen? I can jump in if useful.
Yeah, so please jump in and help me because I'm just starting to understand the second piece. Chatbots are probably familiar to both most people listening. Chatbots are an interface where we ask a question of the AI and the AI responds to us. So these are not new with generative AI. We've been using chatbots on customer support websites when they've been terrible for until generative AI for the most part. But ChatGPT and Claude and Gemini, they're all chatbot based interfaces. And lawyers are also using chatbot based interfaces in their firms or their practices as they're testing new tools. And it's a familiar interface, which I think is what makes generative AI so adoptable. But I think it's important for lawyers and myself really to understand that this is just one way of engaging with artificial intelligence. And we're already starting to see a new wave of interfaces that will increasingly be infused into our physical environments, which is also why I think AI will be more transformative ultimately than the internet, which we sort of have been engaging with in a two-dimensional way since its inception. It's gotten stronger, but we continue to be limited to our devices in using it. But we're seeing already some new offerings. The first from Claude, and I believe Google announced before the end of the year that they'll have an offering. But Bridget, could you tell us about computer use? What does that mean?
Yeah, so I will say that I tried to figure out if I had access to this new way of using Anthropic's Claude, and I don't seem to, and it doesn't sound like I just couldn't find it. I think only certain users do at this point. Like you, I assume you read Ethan Mollick's piece. He had access to it early. He always gets access to the newest tools, and I read his piece on this, and so as always, my knowledge is coming from Ethan Mollick, sort of just recycling it for our listeners. But this new way of interacting with the technology is where the frontier model takes over your computer and carries out a task that you ask it to carry out, and that might mean it has to do some research. It has to go, looking for information across different websites, or in the around the internet to figure out what it needs to know to take the action you've asked it to take. But the idea is it can then do something independently based on that. However many steps it's needed to learn what it needs to do. I think in Ethan's case, he had it build a computer game. I think the idea is this is where we're headed with asking it to buy you an airplane ticket or, make a reservation at a hotel. Those are probably pretty simple asks of it because I think there's the folks who code for a living are going to have much more use cases for this. And I saw over the weekend that Google is working on the same thing and will release it by the end of the year. And I also read that OpenAI, of course, is also working on it. And I assume this is just the first step to agents, which we've been talking a little bit about, and others have been talking about. Is that about how you understand what the computer use interface is?
I think so. I've been trying to sort of wrap my head around what it will mean when AI is inside of our computer systems. And I think you're right. We talked on another episode about agentism, which is, there's no clear definition for some of these things, but it's basically the idea of AI acting on your behalf without needing your direction at every step. And I've been thinking about ChatGPT as agentic in some form now because unlike at the beginning, it now goes out to the internet and does searches and comes back with information without me telling it where to go. But this is, like you said, another level of just giving it an overarching goal and stepping away. I think in Ethan's case, he talked about like stepping away from the computer, and it's going to take a while, and you come back
Yeah.
and it's still working. It's still moving through the steps, but it's not asking you for feedback. And I think in his case, he had to redirect it a couple times, but it didn't come back and ask, should I now do this? Would you like me to do this? So I'm still trying to wrap my head around what the implications are. And, we take a very optimistic view, but it's also a little bit wild to have AI unleashed inside your computer or your browser and have it do things without your engagement. But it does seem to be the next frontier, so to speak, of using these systems.
And I think once you have that capability in your phone, that's when adoption just grows tremendously, right? If you can, ask your phone to monitor the Delta flights to wherever and let you know when there's a seat, or let you know, if there's a chance to get on an earlier flight. Who's not going to do that, right? I mean,
Right.
At least it's hard to imagine. So
I think that's also why, and this is outside the scope of our conversation, but people are sort of down on Apple right now because they have not sort of lit the world on fire with their AI offerings yet. I think they're making a smart play that when these systems become a little bit more refined and are then integrated into something that everybody has in their pockets, they will leapfrog over some of their competition in sort of owning the AI space, because it will be seamless as Apple products are. And like you said, I could see it doing all sorts of really useful things without you needing to direct it on your phone.
which is Apple's way, right? I mean, they always kind of let other big tech companies go first, and they let them make mistakes, and they wait until it's, all the rough edges are smoothed out, and then they deploy it in this like really user-friendly, easy to use kind of way. But one of the things I read in one of the comments about this new computer use function is apps won't matter anymore, because, if your computer is the one trying to find its way between different apps to take the steps it needs to do whatever it is it's trying to do for you, it doesn't really care if, about their interface. It doesn't care if they're pretty. It doesn't care, if they are super easy to use. It just wants to like get its work done. So that'll be really interesting if it really downgrades the app market. I don't know if that's right or wrong, but I read one commentator saying that.
I could see that. And it's funny, right? Like we've only had apps on a phone for 15 years or so, but it feels like that's the way it has to be. Just like Google has to be the way that you optimize for people getting to your website. And it does seem like in the next couple of years, the things that we thought were sort of canonical about using technology are going to shift really quickly. Thank you for tuning in to 2030 Vision, AI and the Future of Law. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to our podcast and leave a review. Stay informed and inspired as we continue to explore the AI-driven future of the legal profession. We'll see you next time.